Cinemoddities, Late Night Movies with Rob and Zach. This is a podcast about cinematic oddities where we discuss any media that is too bizarre, abnormal, or off-kilter for contemporary audiences. Occasionally, these projects gel, but most times they crash hard, into the realm of obscurity. Join us as we delve into the cult classic swamp. I'm LJ.
And I'm looking for the illegal streetcar race. So... a little bit about this episode. This is going to be a quick bonus episode. Well, we'll see how quick it is, actually. We might have a lot to hate about this movie from what you told me, LaShawn, right before we started recording. This is something that I'm glad we get to do. Originally, I reached out to LaShawn and I said, hey, you want to pick something for Fansgiving? We had to shuffle some things around, and then when he eventually picked this movie that we're discussing, which I always do this, I try and give it a drop, but everybody, when they click on the episode of the podcast, they know what we're discussing. So it's Superfast. This is actually now going to act as our true end to the high impact joke density series from earlier this year, because avid listeners of our podcast know that I dropped one of those episodes so Zach and I could discuss Tenet as a main episode. So I guess first and foremost, I don't think LaShawn knew this. Did you brave the movie theaters to see Tenet? Were you familiar with Tenet at all?
I could tell you this is the first time I've heard that movie name.
Oh, okay. So yes, that was, we figured in the state of the world, this was going to be one of the only times we could actually go to a theater and see a new movie, so we had to discuss it. So I'm glad you you have not known anything about Tenet. We don't have to get into that, but now we are finally getting back to a high impact joke density spoof movie. And I really like what you chose, LaShawn, because there was some episode earlier in that series that you weren't on, and I remember saying, why isn't there a spoof movie of the Fast and the Furious franchise? And then when we did our Don't Be a Menace to South Central While Drinking Your Juice in the Hood episode, you actually told Justin and I that there was a spoof of the Fast and the Furious franchise, and it was called Superfast. And I didn't really know anything about it, and I was kind of like, okay, at least, they're keeping up with spoofs, I guess. LaShawn recommended this one. I looked into it, and immediately I saw that it was written and directed by Jason Friedberg and Aaron Seltzer, and I went, oh no. So if people go back and listen to or remember our high impact joke density series, I basically say that the movies like Date Movie, Epic Movie, Meet the Spartans, Disaster Movie, Vampires Suck, and The Starving Games are responsible for the decline of the spoof genre and comedy as a genre as a whole.
Amen.
These two people are responsible for every single one of those movies I just listed.
Oh, God, no.
So I am glad that I get to, finally see this movie, because I've seen Date Movie. I don't know if I saw Epic Movie. I think I saw Meet the Spartans once, and then I was like, I can't do this. This stuff is an atrocity as far as I'm concerned. So this is their most recent from 2015, and I'm glad I got to see it, and we're going to be able to give some thoughts on, the older spoof movies, because we did Airplane, we did Don't Be a Menace to South Central While Drinking Your Juice in the Hood. Still got to say the whole title every time. And now we get one that's more recent. And I think I want to start off by saying, because I've only seen this once, I don't know if I think you said you saw it when we discussed it previously, and maybe you rewatched it again for this.
Correct, yeah.
This movie fits into all the others. This is an atrocity. This movie's a nightmare.
It's so bad.
I have to say, though, the thing I was surprised by is that I didn't find it unbearable, which I was actually surprised by. I was never really bored during the movie. I think they capture that kind of Airplane idea well, where there's so many jokes that at least you're always looking at something. And to be fair, I can't, misrepresent it. I actually did laugh at a few points of this movie. There are some things that I actually really enjoyed.
Nope.
I think my favorite thing in this movie, and just to get out of the way, it'll all be downhill from here, is the introduction of the character who is parodying The Rock. I love that he just drives his Hummer straight into a crime scene, gets out of the car, and immediately rubs himself down with baby oil. I found that quite funny.
I'll say that was actually pretty good. But that's one of those jokes that everyone's we know. So it's they didn't really think outside the box, but I'll give them that. Seeing it actually brought to the screen was funny.
Okay. So I wanted to ask you, because you were the one who introduced me to this. Is this something that you found because you're into like the Fast and the Furious movies or this genre that they're parodying? Or did this like just pop up on your radar and you checked it out one day? Because I know it's on Netflix. Like that's where they dumped it after it made like no money at the box office.
Honestly, this one, I couldn't resist because I kind of had the same thought process you did of, how come no one has spoofed the Fast and Furious movies? And so the minute that someone did, I was like, yes, let's see if they actually did a good job, because there's so much wrong with those movies. And unfortunately, I'm so loyal to those movies that I refuse to let anyone say anything bad. So seeing this, I was like, they did okay.
Okay. I think that's one of the things I'm going to have a lot of questions for you is, what are they parodying, or is it anything direct from the Fast and the Furious movies? Because as our audience knows, I have only seen one Fast and Furious movie, and it was Tokyo Drift, and it was maybe like 13 years ago. So you are a fan of those movies, though, right?
Yeah, don't roast me for it. But
are you up on all of them? Like, what's the Fast Hobbs and Furious Shaw, whatever the spin-off is called?
I stopped at that one. I just couldn't. They lost the whole franchise after that. Like, I don't know what they're talking about at this point. Like, it's like an action movie now with barely talking about cars. So that's, yeah.
Okay, yeah, that was what I thought, because I saw like trailers for that in theaters back when theaters were a thing. I remember people talking about it, and it was something like Idris Elba has a Superman suit that makes him like real strong, and they have to like go to an island where The Rock's family lives and hold off Idris Elba or something like that. And I'm like, I don't think there's a single car in that whole trailer.
Yeah, I have no clue where they're going with that. And what's crazy is that, in the beginning of the franchise, the first few movies, everyone was like, oh my God, this is awesome. But you really can only get into it if you really are about cars and women. And so now they're like, well, we need to add more, dimension to our movies. And so they started adding more plot and everything and trying to evolve these movies into something more complex, which, pretty much shut out their fan base, because they're like, I just want to see the cars and girls dancing to, Daddy Yankee. Like, that's all I want to see.
I do have to say, with the little I've actually seen of the very little I've actually seen of this franchise, the things that I do know about, I did pick up on in Superfast. Like, the first minute of the movie is just ass shots. And I was like, oh, this could be like a Fast and the Furious movie from what I know.
Yeah, so many of the movies start out that way, so that's why it's hilarious. They try to throw in some car scenes, and some panning shots of cars, but then it's immediately like women, and then cars. women, cars.
Oh, absolutely. So do you have a favorite of the franchise, of the main ones? I know there's the Hobbs and Shaw we talked about. I think there's short films and stuff. But there's 8 of the main movies? 7? 8? Yeah, I don't even know.
Yeah, I think there's 7.
Okay.
I could be wrong. But my favorite is, honestly, Tokyo Drift is probably my favorite.
Okay.
Other than the original itself.
Gotcha. So Tokyo Drift, since I have only seen that one, the thing that stands out to me about that movie, well, other than the drifting, is...
Let me guess, DK?
I think so, maybe. I don't remember any of the names or anything. I was thinking of the Incredible Hulk car that Lil Bow Wow has or something like that. Yeah. I just remember seeing that and I was like, this is insane.
I just like the main actor from that. He talks like he's from Alabama, and that's the one thing he says in the movie. There's do you know what DK stands for? And he's like, Donkey Kong. And he's like, no, it stands for Drift King. And I'm like, oh my God, who wrote this?
Yeah, isn't the premise of that one that this dude, like you said, from the South goes to Japan to live with his dad or something, and and he can't relate to the culture until he meets Lil Bow Wow, who's also in Tokyo for some reason, and then he's like, we're gonna race cars.
Yeah, there's a lot of plot holes and things that just don't make sense, and so it's just one of those movies you just are like, wow, this is really cool. They've got some great cars in this movie, and that's what I like.
Okay, yeah. I think that's what I've heard as well from people who get into this franchise, is that the first few movies, like you were saying, they're if you're into cars, if you're into looking at cars, seeing how cars work, stuff like that, it's great. But then I've heard in the later movies it gets into hacking and heist jobs and stuff like that, and I know, I don't know if this is the case because I haven't seen it, but Zach always likes to make the joke that, in like Fast and the Furious 6, they're basically like trying to stop, a terrorist group or something, and it's like has a lot of worldwide implications, where in the Fast and Furious 1, they're like stealing DVD players.
Yeah, like no, that's literally like that breaks it down to a T because they go from it's like the government's like, we need you, we need hardened criminals to help us save the world, and it's like, wait, why? Why? What's wrong with the task forces that you guys have? Like, you just need this guy who does street racing, and they used to steal engines off of trucks and siphon fuel from like I don't know.
Sure, okay. I before we get into the movie, I have some more Fast and the Furious questions. Isn't it the case that there's the end of one movie, like maybe 4 or 5? They're like, we have to go to Tokyo to learn how to drift or something. And you're like, oh, there's like a timeline to this franchise. But then the follow-up movie, it's not like they just ignore the Tokyo thing or something like that.
Yeah, like the movies are so out of order, and it's like, I still don't know them, to be honest, at this point. I'm just like, I've given up. I'm like, I just watch the movies to watch them because they're trying to make them way too deep, and it's just not that.
Okay. Yeah, I also know that the other thing that always stands out to me is that whenever I hear people talk about this franchise, the people that I think, aren't as much into cars, just from what I know about them, they're always like, oh, it's like a story about family. And I'm like, are you saying this like facetiously, or is this like a line in the movie, or is it like, do you actually think that's the case? Because as far as I know, they're just like, doing crazy nonsense in like the last 3 movies. And The Rock is there, Jason Statham's there, Vin Diesel's there. They're all just playing themselves,
So the thing with that's such a stretch, but I'll give them that because one of the themes since the first movie is like Dominic Toretto. He's always like, mi familia, like family is everything.
Okay.
And so like every time anyone does anything, he's like, look, we're family, That's what it comes down to. I've got your back, you've got mine. And it's just like that's his like that's the theme of his life, is just everything is family. Everyone is family.
Interesting. I don't think of that when I think of these movies.
Yeah. So I'm like, I could kind of see how they got that. It's a stretch, but I wouldn't call that at all the theme of the movie, just Dominic's life.
Okay. So I'm guessing, I think Vin Diesel's in all of them except Tokyo Drift, where he like has a cameo at the end or something.
Yeah, he shows up in the last scene. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if I'll ever watch these movies. I think the only reason I'd watch these movies is if we had to do it on the podcast at some point. But it's gone so off the rails, it seems, that I'm very interested. I think one of my last things before we get into Superfast is, I know it's The Rock and Jason Statham. One of them is Hobbs and one of them is Shaw. Do you know which one is which?
Hobbs is The Rock.
Okay. And so Jason Statham's Shaw. I have never known that because I haven't seen the movies, but I didn't even understand, like, watching the trailers, which one was which. They were just like, action. And I was like, I don't know which one's Hobbs and which one's Shaw.
I don't know. So I have a weird thing with The Rock. Like, I'm not a fan at all. Like, I don't know. His style, something just doesn't click with me. And when they brought him into those movies, I was like, I guess maybe just eye candy for women or something. Okay. I don't know. Just bring in another big muscle dude. But he didn't really add anything. He was just like this angry dude at like, Vin Diesel for no reason. Like, I knew they were going to fight each other. Like, It was, of course they're going to fight. And of course the fight scenes weren't even that great. Like, I don't know. They could have done way more with the two of these characters. But anyways, The Rock's not my favorite.
No, I'm actually glad you bring that up. Back in September, we did a series, one of our short series, 3 movies, called The Rock Set Shit Straight. And they were movies where The Rock is the lead, and in 2 of them, he goes into some town and has to, like, set shit straight. The third one, Southland Tales, was just something I really wanted to do that had The Rock in it. We talked a lot about The Rock on that series, and I actually agree with you. I don't think The Rock is an actor. He's a screen presence. Like, if you need big, muscular man, you just get The Rock. Like, and a big thing we talked about was, like, he is our generation's Arnold Schwarzenegger. Yeah, it's like, if you need to cast somebody that when they walk in the room, everybody goes, who are you? And are you human? Because they're just so muscle bound. That's who you get. Like Arnold, he went off and he's older now. He did his governor thing. He had an illegitimate child with his maid, which is a fun story. But now we have The Rock. And The Rock is just like, he's that positivity dude on Twitter. He's, just big muscle man. He'd post his workout videos with, Gabrielle Union or something these days.
Yeah,
And I think I was hearing recently that he is on, the verge of releasing his own tequila. Like, he bought a tequila company or something. And so I'm like, I'll try it, The Rock, but I want it to be, in the shape of your torso. Like, I want the bottle to be, a muscled torso, and it's called, The Rock Tequila or something like that. No, so I'm actually with you. The Rock is nothing special. He's just, we always need a big muscle-bound dude in our movies, every generation. And so The Rock is who we have here. Honestly, I think that we should get more of whoever plays The Rock parody in this movie, because he is just so on the nose in that entrance scene when he's like, someone's like, "Do you want your coffee, sir?" And he smashes it, and he's like, "I don't want to drink anything until this case is solved." And I'm like, this is, you're right. It's not anything new. It's just a straight baseline parody. But I guess after watching these Rock movies and talking about The Rock a few months ago, that I was like, oh wow, they're really nailing this uptight government cop character or whatever he's supposed to be.
Spot on.
So yeah, that's the baby oil got me hardcore.
Killed a cop. Son of a bitch.
Detective Johnson, I got some files for you to look at.
This is no time for paperwork.
I've got regular, decaf, latte.
I'll drink some coffee when I solve this crime.
Here are those urine samples you requested.
Look, people, the only thing I want right now is to know what happened here. Officer Canero, what do you got?
There's a camera.
Yeah, so?
So, maybe it recorded what happened.
And then what?
And then... And then you could watch the tape and see who shot him?
It just might work.
So I guess I should say where to start with this movie. Like I said, Friedberg and Seltzer, they did all these other movies. I don't know, having seen Date Movie and Meet the Spartans, and then thinking about what I know about these spoof movies that they've been doing, they all seem to cost somewhere between $20 and $30 million. Where did this money go? This movie does not look like it cost $20 million. Like this.
That was the budget?
$20 million they spent on this movie. And they have no big name actors. They have terrible CGI. They can't seem to get more than one camera. Every shot looks like it's on the same camera. I was like, where did $20 million go into this movie? I mean, I'm just thinking about the explosions at the end, like when the bike cop runs into the tree and explodes. Yeah. It is the worst looking explosion. Like, that's like early 2000s era explosion, and this was 2015. I don't know if they're paying the actors a lot of money. I don't know if they're taking a huge salary, but I was shocked to see $20 million for this.
They have to be. I mean, none of the cars in that movie, and that's one thing I'd say was really funny, is every car they picked was like a super affordable, like low budget car. A smart car was in there. You can get a smart car for $5,000. Like, they didn't do anything to the cars either. Like, the cars didn't get blown up or destroyed. So then I'm like, where did the money go?
I'm so glad you went there. That was what I was going to ask you, because I am totally ignorant about the cars they used in this. A few of them, I was like, that kind of looks like a nice car, but I can't tell what make or model it is. In the final chase scene, when it's like the three cars that are like backing up our two main characters as they're dragging an entire building behind them, because yes, that happens in this movie. Like, there's three cars, two of them look pretty good, or it could have just been a good paint job, and one is like this dull, beat-up purple. And I'm like, that does not look like a fancy car at all.
See, it's funny because that's the one you picked, but that purple car is it's a BMW 3 Series.
Okay.
But it's a lot of people love that car. It's like a cult classic because it's one of like the pinnacles to BMW's engineering, where cars really felt connected to the road, and even if you're a real driving enthusiast and you love to feel like one with your machine, that's the car that you get. And so and a lot of them look like that though.
Okay.
And so it's kind of hilarious because you'll go to these car meets and stuff, and people will pull up in those BMWs, and they're like, and they get so much respect. It's like, dude, you're still driving that thing? Like, you're driving one of the OG, like, original, like, true car enthusiast cars, but it looks like crap or whatever. And most people just keep them that way, and that's kind of a weird card thing. Like, you're keeping it alive. It should be shot. Cool.
Okay, gotcha. Would you know, I don't know how closely you paid attention to it, like, what is the most fanciest or expensive car in this movie? Was there one that, like, stood out to you, I guess?
So the one I kept looking, and I was like, so honestly, one of the ones that stood out was the Cadillac that the bad guys drive at the end.
Okay.
When they're arguing about the dual climate control thing.
Oh my god. Oh my god, that scene. I was like, please let this movie move on from this. That went on so long. When they're like, do you see an invisible barrier? It's one climate, it's not two climates. And I'm like, oh, who thought this would be a good idea?
And it's like they did a pretty good job setting that one up, and they got it, but then they just beat it to the ground after that. Yeah. So there's the Cadillac Escalade. That's always a pretty expensive ride. But then there's the Vision. It's the orange car that I guess the main guy had to deliver. And he was like, why can't you just drive this car yourself? And then, so that is and that car is really interesting that they chose that. I don't know if they're car guys, but the Vision, it's like the I forgot some abbreviation letters. So that car is like a one-off car. Like, it's some guy who, like, loved cars and he wanted to make his own supercar. So he tried to do that in his, like, in his basement type of thing, or garage.
Interesting.
So it never made it very far. So in total, there's 3 of them, I think, and then one of them is that one in the movie is a replica. I'm pretty sure it is. And so a lot of people do, like, kit cars where they'll just put a body kit on it. And so I'm pretty sure that's what it is, because the real one is worth millions. So I don't think they spent their whole budget on that car, which is possible. They may have.
That might be. We might have cracked it. That's where the budget for this movie went. So I'm glad you mentioned it as well, because in the movie they call that a supercar. Is this a real term, or is this just made up? Like, what is a supercar?
So it's a real term. There's supercar, there's hypercar, there's sports car, there's all different things. But yeah, a supercar, I couldn't even tell you the true definition, but it's something exotic and something with crazy high performance. So, 0 to 60 in like 3 seconds type of thing and below. Those are supercars.
What is a hypercar? Because you mentioned that. Because that just makes me think that they could make a sequel to this movie called, like, Superfast 2 Hyperfast or something like that.
Hypercar is generally something, I don't know if some people go based on price and rarity and performance too. So it's a little bit of all of those things, but usually something that's worth $500,000 plus. You'll get a lot of, like, hybrid cars. So it'll be like gas motor and an electric motor for a total of like 1,000 horsepower. Like, those are hypercars. That's like next level performance that, for example, like the Bugatti Veyron, like something like that, where every oil change is like $36,000 because you have to your tires are only good for like 2,000 miles because the car just shreds them because it's so much torque and everything. And, you have 5 turbos or 6 turbos or whatever it is. This crazy engineering.
Okay. I was not aware. I mean, I knew cars like that existed. I love that term, hypercar. That's what the sequel to Cars, the Pixar movie, should have been. Cars 2, Hypercar. Okay, interesting. So, yeah, like you mentioned, so those definitely stood out. I mean, the supercar, they pointed out in the movie. The smart car, like you said, we get one of those in there. I think it's the smart car, something that I didn't understand, and I wasn't sure if I was hearing it correctly, because I didn't watch this with subtitles. When our main... Okay, so also I should say, I don't know any character's name in this movie. I'm going to call them who they're parodying from The Fast and the Furious. Like,
good, that's so much easier.
Yes, because I have no idea what our main Paul Walker character's actual character name is.
Lucas, I think.
I don't know where you got that, but I had no idea when that... I guess we should also say at the end, it sets up at the start that he's an undercover cop. And then at the end, The Rock is basically like, you're a cop. Good job, officer, whatever. And I'm like, I totally forgot he was an undercover cop. Like, they didn't mention it for 40 minutes. So when he loses the drag race at the beginning, or the street race, I don't know if it's a drag race. I think that's a different thing. RuPaul's drag race. Which, that might be a better joke than anything that's in this movie. But anyway, when he loses the race, they're like, you owe us a 10-second car? I think that's what they say?
Correct.
What the hell is that?
So drag racing, is when you go to the actual like track and it's like quarter-mile strip,
Okay.
That type of stuff. So you can use it for the street. We call it drag racing still to this day. But technically it's on the track is what makes it a drag strip.
Okay.
But a 10-second car is, your 0 to 6, or your 0 to, not 0 to 60, your quarter mile time, is what is important. So you can run the quarter mile in 10 seconds or less.
Oh,
which
okay.
Is crazy fast because like that smart car is like 25-second car.
That's what I was going to ask you next.
it's-
Since you're our
yeah.
expert, I was going to say, like, is a smart car, especially a damaged one, a 10-second car?
Yeah, and so that's hilarious in itself, is just that like this guy is trying to bring this smart car in, which crazy enough, people actually do put like motorcycle engines in the smart cars and they actually are capable of running some crazy good numbers. So, because they're light, so
Yeah.
you just add more horsepower, easy.
Have you ever done a smart car on your channel?
No, but I want to.
Okay. Yeah, I've only seen them. I've never been in one. I would love to just like try one out because it's always been interesting to me, like a smaller type of thing. But yeah, I was just curious about
it.
that.
Yeah. And like the Fiat is the same platform and it's pretty similar. And so I've like that. You can pop a U-turn anywhere you want. You can just pop a U-turn in the parking lot.
That's a good point. You're not doing donuts. You're just doing like spinning on your central axis.
Exactly.
Oh man. Okay. Yeah. So that was a terminology I was unfamiliar with. 10-second car, but that makes total sense. That it would be like, how fast can you do a certain distance? I think my next question, and this is actually great. This is turning out to be a very educational episode. I've heard of it only in movies and TV shows, and of course, it probably was popularized by Fast and the Furious. But how does NOS work? Nitrous oxide is what I believe it is. And
Correct.
In this movie, they're just like, I got like an oxygen tank canister of NOS or Lance Armstrong's urine. That's their joke in this movie. And they just kind of like, because I've seen it both ways. I've seen in this movie and others that they like open the canister or something like that. I've also seen people press buttons in movies and TV shows. So my probably wrong understanding is always that it adds something into the engine that makes it combust faster or better. If you could enlighten us.
No, that's actually pretty close. So whenever you add anything to these cars, like modifications and whatever, you've got turbochargers and superchargers, and so they compress air, and that affects your air to fuel ratio. So when it does ignite, it changes how much power is made essentially.
Oh, okay.
And so the nitrous does kind of the same effect. It mixes with the fuel and changes the combustion point based on my understanding as well, that causes a different amount of air to fuel ratio per explosion in your engine, and
Sure.
so you make a little bit more power. So that's essentially what it is.
So does that relate to more RPMs to get the car to go fast? I guess that's my next question is, does NOS in real life, or superchargers, turbochargers, whatever we're calling any of these things, do they work like we see them in the movies? Because every time it's in a movie,
Yes.
they hit a button and the car just goes faster.
Yeah, they really do.
Okay.
Most of any car that I've seen that's running nitrous, it goes, you can add up to like 150 horsepower. So anywhere from as low as like 50 all the way up to another 150 horsepower. So just from pushing that button, you inject that into your fuel system, which changes what kind of fuel your car is getting just for that split burst. And then you're able to make a little bit more power.
Oh, okay.
Without making crazy modifications to your car.
Sure. I guess that's good then, because I always hate when like movies do stuff and then you like talk about it in real life and it's like, yeah, it doesn't actually work that way. But I guess, since it's easy enough, it's like, how do we make a car go faster? That's what people have wanted cars to do since cars have been around, I think. So It's like, it's just that basic.
Yeah. And no, like that's the one thing with this movie is that like they touch on a lot of the things that, is car culture, but the things that they try to portray as like a joke, it doesn't really come across that way to people that really do care about cars, because they're like, oh, that's cool. It's like, no, it's supposed to be funny. I'm making fun of you. It's like, yeah, but it's cool. It's like,
Sure.
yeah, but you turning a bottle and turning on your nitrous, like, it's funny. Like, you guys think that this is the coolest thing in the world, and it's like, yeah, we do. What's the joke?
Yeah, I do have to say, in terms of the filmmaking of this, in that opening race when they all turn on their NOS or their Lance Armstrong's urine, that the filmmaking is that they film the car and then they like actually just time lapse it. Like, they don't even really speed it up. They just time lapse a car driving, which makes it look faster. And I'm like, that's interesting, because I was expecting them to just be like, let's speed the footage up, and they're not actually doing that. They're speeding up the time that it takes. And I was like, maybe that's where some of their money went, that they had to film this car, driving for an hour, and then they just time lapsed it into like 3 seconds or something, which I think is, well, on digital, I don't know which one costs more, but I like that. So I think this is the thing, like, I did laugh at some things in this movie. It might have been Stockholm Syndrome. It might have been, some form of just having to watch this and not seeing one of these things for so long. I do want to recall, before I throw it over to you, what I said, or what we talked about in our airplane episode, that a lot of these jokes in air quotes, I think, for most of them, you laugh at them twice. You laugh at them once, and then you laugh at yourself for laughing at something so goddamn stupid. Like the Rock one is very dumb, like we said, very baseline. The first laugh I got out of the movie was when the race starts, and then Paul Walker's character isn't moving, and it cuts to the gas gauge, which is fully on E, and he's like, I forgot to get gas, and I was like, oh, okay. I was like, that's very interesting. I didn't expect that at all.
Oh God, I can't believe that one got you.
That one, yeah. So this is definitely going to be one of those things where it's like, I'm going to be embarrassed about the ones that got me. You're going to make fun of me. Our audience is going to make fun of me. But so I think the one thing I wanted to ask you, which I think we can both agree on, do you agree that this movie is way too goddamn long? Like, an hour and 40 minutes, basically. And that's really, there's like 5 minutes of credits without the bloopers, because there's some bloopers at the end. Way too long. Like, this should have been easily 80 minutes. Like, an hour 20, we get in, we get out, done. What did you think about, like, the pacing and the length and things like that?
I agree with you on that one. And I think a lot of it was them. And I think that's kind of one of the things they're trying to show, is that a lot of the Fast and Furious movies is just, they add in so much extra stuff to fill in, the movie. Like the car scenes, if you're in a drag race, you might, you don't want to be shifting 10 times. So when you should never be downshifting at all in the middle of a drag race from zero, because you're only going forward. So you should never go backwards. And so, that's one of the things in Fast and Furious movies, is they're always shifting, and that it's just a joke. And so in that movie, they always do the cuts and the crazy fast shifting, and it's hilarious because those little Toyota Corollas they're in barely make 130 horsepower, and
Sure.
They're just getting every little bit they can, which is kind of what the Fast and Furious movies do. It's like, let's take these cars, and it's just people driving, but we're going to make it the most insane thing ever. It's going to be cool and action-packed and everything.
I definitely picked up on that when I was watching this. All the cuts to the shifting. I don't know much about, manual transmission cars, but it looked like they weren't even actually shifting a car with a manual transmission. It looked like they just had the stick loose in some pocket, and they were just like, we're dancing it around everywhere. And I'm like there's a few shots of the Rock character at the end chase where it cuts to him shifting, and it looks like he knocks the stick backwards, and it almost falls into the car seat. Like, it's not even connected to anything. And I'm like, I don't know if this is the joke or, but I totally agree. There was so much shifting.
And then just some of the footwork they were doing was unnecessary. It was just all dramatic.
Yes.
And I feel like, it was supposed to be funny. Oh my God, they're exaggerating the shifting and the driving. And, those cars aren't fast at all. So when they're getting thrown back in their seat and just being all oh my God, I've got the fastest car in the world. The thing is, the Fast and Furious cars were actually really quick, fast cars.
Okay.
They're capable of popping wheelies. Those are true things. So to make fun of them, it's you're trying to make fun of it, but those cars genuinely are fast.
Sure. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. That this movie, wherever the money went, it wasn't to the hottest cars of the day, that type of thing.
Like even the unicorn on the side of the main character's car, it's like, why is his car pink or blue? And it's like, I don't know. I just don't get some of it, but I'm like, I see what you're trying to do. Like that is funny, but a unicorn in itself is not funny.
Yeah.
And a unicorn on a man's car is also not funny. It's just a thing. Like, it's just there.
Yep. Maybe someone likes unicorns,
Yeah.
Yeah, they go. Some of the stuff is like like that date movie, epic movie. They go over the top for sure. And I think the one thing. Well, there were two things in this movie. One was a scene, and one was a performance. I think the performance, because it pervades the entire thing. The Paul Walker character doing like the surfer dude voice the whole movie and saying like, "Bruh, I wanted to like stab my ears in some of those scenes. That it was so grating on me." And he's like, "Question, why don't you drive the car yourself?" And it's like, my insurance premiums are out of this world because I have 1 million parking speeding tickets, parking tickets, whatever. And he's like, "Well, what quote did you get from Affleck, bruh?" And I'm like, just fucking talk in a normal voice. Because I haven't seen the Paul Walker ones, but as far as I know about Paul Walker, he doesn't do that voice in the Fast and the Furious movies. Is that true?
There's a little bit of a California vibe to him because he's so chill, but not that. Yeah, that's next level.
Yeah, I was like, what am I hearing? All the scenes that are supposed to be like him on the date with Vin Diesel's sister, and he's just like, "Well, I figured we'd have some fondue, bruh," and he like has the fondue in the car, and I'm like, just talk like a normal person.
And that's the other, like, that humor right there, once they started doing a lot of that, like, slapstick type stuff, I'm just like, I can't deal with that. Like, that does nothing for me. So, like, when he dropped the hood on the guy, or, the guy, he runs over the guy's foot, and it's like, "Oh, you ran over my foot." And it's like, okay. Like, and?
Yeah, that, I think, like I was saying, we were saying, and all the other people that were on that series when we were doing the other spoof movies, that's what I hate about spoof movies, when they carry out a visual joke and then have the characters explain the joke.
Oh,
like you just said, his foot gets run over and he's like, "Oh, my foot." And it's like, we know by seeing the stupidly flattened out foot that your foot is in pain. We are aware of this,
Yeah.
Why do you need to tell us these things?
Yeah, there wasn't much like put into like, I don't know, like some really good punchlines or anything like that. It was all just very surface level stuff. And I feel like they could have done way better, like even trying to poke fun at the main chick being a lesbian. Like,
Sure.
I'm just like, what is, it's 2015 at that time. Like, what's funny about that? Like,
Yeah. I didn't understand that, we get the first joke where she like, they get to the race and she sees all the women that we've been seeing and she's like, "Man, that's a great ass." And Vin Diesel's like, "What?" And he's like, "Oh, go kick ass." And then later on, she just keeps making overtly like sexual jokes about her lesbianism. And then there's scenes where other characters are like, "She's a closeted lesbian. She's going to come in contact with her sexuality." I'm like, she's not closeted. She is openly speaking about her liking other women. Like, what? I don't get that joke.
And they try to like make fun of the main character in Fast and Furious because her Letty is her character, and she does give off those vibes.
Okay.
But I mean, it's not anything that's like funny in itself. Like, so what if she gives off those vibes? Like, I don't find that as like humor. Like, it's just like, cool, so she might be a closeted lesbian. So what? Like, we're just gonna.
Yeah, exactly. Like you said, it was 2015. Who cares? I mean, even this movie doesn't even go like nudity at all. They do that weird pixelation at like the drug cartel operation scene. And I'm just like, okay, they're not even going to own that up, but there's that whole thing he's explaining the plan and we have to just grind to a halt where she's like, "Wait, all these women are naked?" And he's like, "Yes, that's literally what I just said." And she goes, "Okay, continue." And I'm like, why? I'm like, we get it.
Yeah. And then their obsession with like getting shot in the dick. Like, I don't know why. It's like, we need to shoot him in the groin. You're going to get shot in the groin.
Yes.
It's like, what's so like, I mean, I guess if I was like 16, I'd be like, "Oh my God, he got shot in the dick." Like, I guess that's funny. Like, I don't know what the audience was for this movie.
Yeah, because it seems like, I would imagine, I don't know this for sure, but you would watch a spoof movie of something if you are a fan of the thing it's spoofing. Like, like Airplane was
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, Airplane was a huge success, but like no one saw that coming, and that like started this genre almost, even though it was spoofing disaster films from the 50s, like we talked about. But then it's like, who's gonna watch Date Movie unless they want to see like rom-coms get parodied, you know? I'm not gonna sit down and be like, oh, here's a parody of Fast and the Furious. I've never seen those movies, so let me do this as my introduction. Like,
right.
I can't imagine anybody gets at that. So I would imagine that, you know, the people that this is made for are the people that saw those movies. At the same time, maybe it's a little different, because I know they did Vampires Suck, which was the spoof of the Twilight movies, and like just like the, you know, romance vampires, stuff like that.
Right.
That makes a little more sense, that somebody's like, oh, those movies are garbage. I hate the Twilight movies. Everybody's making fun of them, so let me watch that to make fun of them.
Exactly.
But I don't think a lot of people make fun of the Fast and the Furious movies, because they still consistently make an insane amount of money.
Yeah, and people love them and they still watch them, and it's like they want to see the cars, they want to hear the engines, you know. And even in the beginning of this movie, the opening scene, it's some of the jokes that's like you'd only get if you were like a super car guy. Like all the revving in the beginning, those were all 4-cylinder cars. Like not one of those were like high horsepower, like great sounding exotics or anything. It was like little economy cars. And so that, I guess, is funny to me, because I'm like, oh, all these cars are revving. Like not one of them is anything worth revving, but it's funny, I guess, you know. But a lot of kids and people start off in cars that way. It's like my mom has this old Toyota Corolla or a Honda Accord, and she's like, here you go. And you have to take this car and you love it. It's your baby now, and you might put some stickers on it or do whatever, but like that's your car, that's your thing. So in the car world, we kind of like embrace everyone who wants to like love their car however they want. Like we don't, some people do make fun of other people, but for the most part, it's like, it's your car. You're taking care of it. If you want to put yellow flames all over it, that's your right. Sure. You know, and that used to be a cool thing back in the day. So I don't know. Okay.
Oh, no, I'm actually glad you brought up the revving thing, because that was something I did not notice at all. Like, the car sounds like a car to me, you know? Like, I need someone like you to point this out. But then the movie doesn't even... I think the movie could work fairly better, maybe not well, but better than it does already, if they double down on that stuff. Because they don't just say, like, maybe that was the joke. Maybe they were like, you know, oh, we'll have some revving from these, you know, little cars that don't match up to what we're actually parodying, but that's the joke. But then they immediately cut it off with the stuff where, like, the Paul Walker character doesn't know how to shift properly at the beginning of the movie, and Vin Diesel has to, like, explain it to him. And I'm like, that's way more basic so that, like, everybody can understand it. And then, you know, Paul Walker's like, I've actually never driven a manual before. And, you know, I guess that's the joke, you know? I think they should have doubled down on the car stuff.
But that's the thing, is, like, it's like, where is that coming from? Like, they just decided to reinvent these characters. Like, like you said, you thought the baby oil thing was funny because that was very similar to what he did in the movie. Like him and all the other guys are all oiled up and everything.
Yeah.
There's even a joke like that in the Fast and Furious movies, because Ludacris is one of the characters, and he goes, "Oh man, do they just give you guys baby oil all the time?" Like,
oh wow,
you know,
okay.
So like they made that joke in the movies. So then you took their joke that they made fun of themselves about, and then try to use it as your own joke and stretch it to some other level. But, you know, I don't know. I just don't really get why Paul Walker was stupid, because he could drive in the movie. But
sure.
The one thing I'll give him, though, is that it is funny throughout the movie where they make jokes that people don't know that he's a cop. Because in the movie, he's like the most clean-cut, like, you know, little white boy from Cali type of thing.
Okay.
And so it's like, for him to just show up and be a street racer and blend in, it's like, you're not fooling anyone. So I like that they at least played on that, because in the movie it makes no sense. Paul Walker would never infiltrate a gang and look like not a cop. Like, it's just that obvious. But in the movies, they try to play it off like Paul Walker can change his clothes and just start hanging with Vin Diesel and his gang. Like, no, he couldn't.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely... I've known about that maybe tangentially, that idea of Paul Walker in the movies. And then I did, like, not the whole, like, monologue he gives, but a few of the lines where he's explaining to the detective. He's like, I can't go undercover. I'm so white, blah, blah, blah. I'm so white, blah, blah, blah. Some of those were pretty good. Like, one of them we'll have to get to with Snacks, where he's like, I'm so white I freeze mayonnaise on sticks so I can have mayonnaise sickles. And I'm like, that is just... very strange, I think, you know?
I've never heard white people jokes like that. I mean, like, I I've heard like, oh, you're so white, you think mayonnaise is spicy. Like, I've heard those things, but like, I've never seen someone actually just like roast themselves for being white. Like, it's I don't know, it's just different.
Yeah, yes. Like I'll have to put the clip in because I didn't write it all down. But I was like, some of these are pretty good. They're taking that buckshot approach where they're like, if we throw as much as we can, like, people are gonna laugh eventually, right? We hope.
It's just that maybe I'm not the right guy for the job. I mean, I don't exactly fit in. I'm really white.
You'll be fine.
I'm so white that when I went to an all-white boarding school, my nickname was Cracker.
I get it.
No, I don't think you do. I love hockey. I water ski. I have a favorite lacrosse team. I have a crush on Martha Stewart. People mistake me for the WikiLeaks guy.
Okay.
I still buy Kid Rock albums. I put potpourri satchels in my underwear drawer. I wear Crocs. I take a weekly Zumba class.
Oh, for Christ's sake.
I cried when Friends went off the air. My favorite actress of all time is Kristen Stewart. And my favorite movie of all time is Pitch Perfect.
Oh, dear God.
I'm so white that I put mayonnaise on sticks, then freeze them to make mayonnaise-icles.
Or even when the cop, his like boss catches him and he's like, oh, you're gonna have to hit me to make it look real. And it's like, okay, like, that's cool. But then he hits him and he's just like, oh, whoops, my bad. I didn't mean to hit you that hard. And then he starts beating him up. And it's like, who is that funny to? Like, a 6-year-old? Like,
yeah, and I didn't like that. Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's actually a perfect example of the who finds that funny, because I think anybody who's seen a movie or a TV show that you've had like an undercover cop or someone trying to infiltrate and they're like, oh, we need to make it look good, you know, we need to rough each other up, that type of thing. They understand that. That is not a high concept. Like, that is just an idea. And then the way that this movie plays it, his boss is like, you know, we're gonna have to make it look good, that type of thing. And Paul Walker's character is like, excuse me? Like, he doesn't understand it. And I'm like, why are we wasting time on this? Like,
I wonder if they tried to improv some of this. Like, I feel like some of it almost seems very improv-y.
That's a good point. I don't know too much about their filmmaking style, Friedberg and Seltzer. I would imagine that with how, like, flat some of these jokes land, that they do improv, and they're just like, fuck it, you know, we spent 2 hours on this scene, let's stop and we'll just find the best things in editing. And it turns out that the best things aren't great most of the time.
Oh, yeah.
So that, I could totally see that. You know, like, I think there was even in one of the bloopers, there was, like, some stuff in the outtakes at the end that they were, like, doing dialogue before they started laughing, and it was dialogue that wasn't in the movie. And so it definitely could have been like, oh, they just had a blooper on this take where they were ad-libbing type of thing.
I think so.
The whole last blooper is, like, the bad guy, like, crying in the car, and then the other guy starts crying, and I'm like, this wasn't in the movie.
Or even when they like bring in the other characters, I thought it was really funny that they called the one black guy rapper cameo.
Oh,
like,
wonderful.
That was one of my. I appreciated that. They did a good job there. But then with the Asian guy, I'm like, you ruined it. Like, why did you have like? They're like, oh, you know karate, and he's like, oh, why? Because I'm Asian. It's like, yeah, but do you know karate? Or it's like, I do, and it's like, oh, okay. But I'm just like, that's a weird conversation, and like. I see what they're trying to do because it's been done of like, oh, you're racist because you think I like, you know, chicken. And it's like, but do you like chicken? And it's like the execution just wasn't right. Like it just was weird.
Yeah, I think they should have, you know, had all those characters just, they get introduced, they have the on the nose names. Like you're right, rapper cameo got me hard because not only did we get the introduction where he's like, okay, we need a black guy and he has to be a rapper, and they're like, why? And he's like, because that's what makes like we appeal to the urban demographic and that's how we make more money. And then the dude comes in and it has like his title card that says rapper cameo, and I thought they were just saying that was the rapper cameo, but then it turns out to be his name, and I'm like, that's good, I like that. But then they did cool Asian guy and model turn actress, and it's like, model turned actress I was fine with. She had nothing to do the whole movie except look smoking hot, like they say. Rapper cameo had nothing to do, basically. But then they do that karate joke with cool Asian guy. And I'm like, just let him eat food all the time. Like, that's all the joke I need from that character.
Yeah. And that's the thing. So in the movies, the guy he's playing does eat food all the time.
Okay. I figured, yeah.
If I remember correctly, it's because he used to smoke, and that's his thing now. He snacks to avoid smoking. If I remember, it might be a totally random other scene or movie or person, but it was something along those lines. But he'll eat like just like a protein bar and just snack on like little chips or like a little bag of chips. It's never anything crazy, but it's never, I don't know, maybe because I like the movies, it doesn't like take away from anything. It's just, he's always munching on stuff, and it's just, he's cool. He'll be driving and be like, yep, chill.
Yeah, where here I liked that they escalated it, because I think it's a bag of chips when he first comes on the scene, and then he has like a chicken taco or something at one point that's like super messy, and then I think in the karate scene he like busts out a whole sundae like in a silver bowl with like the full banana split on top, and then he has the big ass taco from the big ass taco restaurant, and so I appreciate escalation like that. You know, that's a good like classic comedy thing. Like Key and Peele do that all the time. But
then they didn't explain it.
yeah. But the cool Asian guy racist thing, that did not work for me. The joke at the beginning where, you know, they're like ready to start the street race, and one of the women has like a cop scanner or like a walkie-talkie, and the walkie-talkie cop says like, "We have a black guy in a white neighborhood minding his own business. All units respond." And I was like, boo! I was like, that is the easiest fucking joke you could ever make.
Yeah. And then if you miss with that joke, then it just totally gives off the wrong vibe. You're like, you tried to make a funny, but now it just makes you look bad.
yes, exactly. Oh my god. So the scene that Paul Walker, that accent is a terrible thing. I hated that. There was one scene in this movie that I thought was a complete atrocity, and I was like, this might be the worst thing I've seen in a while. And it was the dance-off scene to show the bad guy who was like worthy to drive his car.
Oh, with the twerking and everything.
I was literally, I think I was sitting here watching it and my mouth was agape, and I was like, but once again, as I think the thesis of this episode is, who finds this funny? Who is this for? Who is laughing at dance moves and then like, oh, freestyle, and then he's like, twerk like Miley Cyrus, and I'm like, who cares at all?
Oh man, it was bad. I see. It's funny. Like the one joke I'd say that like really stuck for me was at the end when The Rock's character shows up and he's like, Paul Walker type dude is a cop. So like, and then he's like, oh, you're a cop? And then they start saying, he's like, oh, you would give up $30,000 a year and unpaid and 30 vacation days for this $100,000 and a life with your beautiful wife and all this stuff.
I really like the little bit that stuck that for me is he says you'd give up like $30,000 a year before taxes.
I'm with them.
You're gonna turn down $32,500 a year before taxes, 3 unpaid vacation days, and a bankrupt pension plan, and what? Run off with $100 million scot-free? Live on an exotic beach and raise your baby with a beautiful woman?
Well, yeah. It's kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah, that was fine. Like, that's the stuff where it's like, you know, it's so blatant and on the nose for like this character that I'm just like, I'm like, that's what this movie has relegated me to laugh at, is how just, you know, actually blatant and obvious that joke is.
Yeah, and that's the only one that really got, because I felt like they took some time to write that, and it's like cool, like you put some time into the writing. Thank you. That was the end of the movie. So somewhere in the beginning they started off good, somewhere at the end they got it, and then they just filled the rest with stuff.
Yes. So speaking of The Rock's character, he's like partnered, I guess, with that woman cop who seems to be the only person in the movie that knows he's an idiot. And I don't know her name in the movie. But that's the thing. I don't even know who she's parodying. You know, she's the one who's like doing the fingerprint analysis, and she's the one who's like, "There's actually a videotape," and The Rock is like, "And we can watch the videotape, and then we can see who committed the crime." That just might work. Like, is she parodying someone specific? Is there like a female cop counterpart in any of the movies?
There, technically, yes. There's like When they go to Brazil, there's a Brazilian cop that he like takes under his wing kind of, and he's like, "You're with me. You're helping me."
Okay.
And she like, I don't know, she's so much smarter and better in every way as a cop than he is in the movie. So I guess that's what they're going for.
Okay. I did like their the Rock's parody has to be my favorite in the movie because it's so like on the nose for the Rock. But I loved in his second scene when they're like investigating the church community center because our main characters beat up the priest because they mixed their addresses up or whatever, and
Right.
then they do the whole thing where it's like, look at this video, it's like, oh, that's Vin Diesel, that's Dominic Toretto, or I think he's Sorrento in this movie, yeah, and then like the whole point of the movie ends, and they're like, okay, we got to find this dude. His hideout can't be too far from here, and then the Rock parody out of nowhere goes, "Is this T-shirt tight enough?" And she's like, "What? Is my T-shirt tight enough?" And he goes, "Well, I can see your nipples and everything." Good, that's what I was going for. And I'm like, this is just insane.
How's it going on the fingerprint match?
Still nothing.
Wherever you fugitives are, I'll find you. You hear me? I will find you! How about this T-shirt?
Sir?
Is it tight enough?
I...
Is it tight enough?
Yes. I mean, I can see your nipples and everything.
You're damn right. That's what I was going for.
Like that is just what I think of The Rock, where he's just like, I can have the tightest shirt possible. And I love they double down when when the bad guy's trying to bribe him at the end, and he's like, I could give you even tighter shirts.
Oh man, I don't really know who they're going after. Some of those jokes, I'm like,
Yes.
you made a movie for what, 13-year-olds, I'm assuming? Like,
Yep. Speaking of that, the age thing, right before The Rock gets introduced, and they go to the crime scene of like the double cross when they deliver the supercar, and you have the chalk outlines of bodies that have goofy faces on them. And that was another one where I'm like, yeah, I've never seen that before. I guess that's a sight gag, but who's gonna laugh at that, It's like, what like grown man is gonna be like, haha, stick figure humor.
I guess it's kind of like, I don't know if you remember like Superbad and stuff, but like, back when people are obsessed with like drawing dicks and everything, it's like maybe that stuff, like there was a point in life where that was hilarious, but it's like as you become older, you're like,
Yes.
all right, cool, like you're gonna draw, a human shaped, dick on someone's car. Like I guess that's funny, but like at some point you're like, all right, I need more than that.
Yeah, absolutely. I never got that as well. LaShawn knows back at Robert Morris, my first freshman year roommate was someone who loved drawing penises on things on the whiteboards of the dorm, and I didn't get it then. I don't get it now. Have you ever heard about that? There was some Netflix show, which I only know the premise because I was blown away. I thought it was a joke, but it actually turned out to be like a 13-episode show where somebody in a school keeps drawing dicks everywhere, and the show is like, who's drawing the penises?
Yeah. And it's like a documentary. It's I can't believe I watched as much of it as I did. It's pretty catchy.
Oh, I remember seeing the trailer for that, and I was like, can we fall further as a culture? And it turns out we could, because that was like 7 years ago, I think.
Yeah. No, this movie just I don't know, I feel like they ran a lot of these ideas by their kids. And they're like, cool, if like maybe my son finds this funny or something, because as an adult, none of this stuff really like does anything for me. And I'm like, cool, I appreciate that you're trying that humor, but the people you're making fun of aren't bothered by you making fun of them. Like we all know what the Fast and Furious movies are.
Yeah.
So you gain nothing, and making fun of cars with stickers on them doesn't change the fact that people are going to still put stickers on them.
Yep.
That's like a huge part of like a lot of the Asian car cultures. They still do cars the way that they do in that movie, and it's like their way of expressing themselves. So we joke about it in a sense, but at the end of the day, no one's gonna like make fun of you per se.
Yeah.
It's just what it is. It's part of the culture, so you can't make fun of it that hard.
No, I get you. Yeah, I would be really interested to see if you show this to like a little kid or somebody who's like, old enough to get some of the sexual stuff, maybe not all of it, but like a teen, that type of thing.
Yeah.
I would love to see what they think about this, because I think the box office shows, the reviews show, this movie is not for like actual film criticism. It's for somebody else. It's what the spoof genre has become, and I would love to see what like a 15-year-old thinks about this with their friends, that type of thing, or someone that like is just getting into cars, being able to drive, that type of stuff. And I don't know. I feel like it could be. They would be like, "This was really dumb."
Yeah, because they're like, okay, cool. I like shifting my manual car. Like, I see that you're trying to make fun of it, but I also want to go drive now that I've seen you just driving. Like, that's what the Fast and Furious movies do. It's like, we go to car meets and we sit there and we're just like, nice car, dude. Yeah, nice car, man. Can I see under your hood? Yeah, sure. Okay, cool. That's nice. Like, I mean, it's just what we do. So it's like, to make fun of it, it's like, you can't really make fun of us. We all know what it is. Like, we know we're just a bunch of guys in a parking lot, or, you know, a bunch of guys revving our cars at each other, but we like it, so we're not going to change it.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. You know, I think this was 2015. Friedberg and Seltzer have, I think I was reading that they're trying to do a Star Wars parody, because I guess that's the hot topic when Disney picked up Star Wars. That's the next thing to parody. But they haven't done anything since 2015. I couldn't even find information about like when the Star Wars one would come out. I think for the reason that you just said, people don't want this anymore. People want, if they want to laugh, they want to laugh at something. They don't want to be like, it's almost like you can't make fun of a lot of this stuff anymore. Maybe, I think the next best thing I could think of is one day we're going to get like a Netflix or a Hulu movie, like direct to those services, that are like, we're going to parody podcasters. But you can't make fun of podcasters. We already know we're doing stupid shit on the internet, you know? Like you said, your car guys are revving your stuff. We're doing stupid jokes with, Cinemati is a perfect example with the infinite void of a restaurant. Like, you can't make fun of us more than we're already making fun of ourselves.
Yeah. And that's the thing, too, now. It's like, a lot of it's like, okay, back in the day before, the internet was like a big thing, like, you wouldn't really you're not exposed to other cultures and the way that other people do things, or you're kind of living your own little bubble. But now, I kind of know what the anime guys do, because I see memes and like I kind of understand what they do. So for you to make a movie making fun of a group of people, it's like, no, I think we all just know that we're all different and like it's okay.
I don't know. Now that you bring that up, that actually might be a fantastic way to end all these discussions about spoof movies, or to cap it off, maybe not end it, like hard cut end, The fact that we've actually reached a point in our culture that we are accepting that people have different interests, so we don't need spoof movies anymore.
Exactly.
Like, it's actually a form of acceptance.
I mean, in all honesty, it's like, we make fun of Twilight movies because people are over here saying that they think vampires are sexy and it's just weird. But it's like, now we're like, cool. So like, they thought vampires were weird, but I'm not weird because I think werewolves are sexy.
Sure.
It's like, everyone kind of has their little areas of the internet and the world now. So it's like, cool, like just go be weird in your corner and we'll just leave it all alone.
Yeah, exactly. Even, I don't think Star Wars is the best example because it's so popular. And so well known.
It used to be, though.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's like nowadays, it's like I've been on the Knights of Vader podcast with Zach, and we will discuss Star Wars parodies. They're just like, it's good, it's fun, they're making fun of this stuff, and we get the jokes. And that's an interesting idea that the lack of true spoof movies, as I've described their decline, is a form of social acceptance.
Yeah. That's true. I mean, oh man, and I guess that's why a lot of it's not funny. I'm like, cool, like people are out there revving their cars, like let them have fun. Like, all right.
Oh man,
like the movie stuff, the jokes that were directly like, let's make fun of The Rock, or let's make fun of like, the way that this filmmaker, like if you made a Michael Bay spoof,
yes,
I'd be like, cool, you can just like. The explosions on the bike and stuff, like that's hilarious. If you told me that was like targeted towards making fun of Michael Bay, I'd be like, perfect. Like the guy rides into a tree on a bike, explosion. Like, perfect. But you can only do that so many times, and you have to say that that's what you're targeting. Like if someone said, "I'm gonna make a Kill Bill movie," and everything just was spraying blood everywhere, I'm like, cool.
Sure.
Perfect. You nailed it. Like, but how can you make a whole movie of that for that long?
Exactly. It just gets stretched out like this whole thing did. Like we said, it was too long, and they're just throwing so much in there, and a lot of it doesn't make sense and that type of stuff. The Michael Bay one is a pretty interesting idea. I would love, because one of my biggest issues with Michael Bay is the editing. It's like, I remember I watched, Justin and I did a double feature of Bad Boys and Bad Boys 2 maybe a few months ago. And there was a scene in Bad Boys 2, like an action shootout scene. Well, while we were watching it, I was counting every time the camera cut, like it was an edit to a different thing. And it was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And it was like just so many edits. Like you have no idea who's where, who's shooting at what, who's getting hurt. You're just seeing the camera cut. I would love to do a spoof where we have an action scene and it's just like cut so fast you cannot see anything. Like it's like milliseconds between cuts.
But that's the other thing too. Like you're talking about quick cuts. It's like that's how people want things given to them now. So it's TikToks and Vines and all that stuff. So we don't need parodies when people parody like scenes just on a regular day-to-day basis anyways. So back then it's like nobody was on the internet being the entertainment for other people. So you know, something funny happens in a TV show and that's it. We just leave it alone until a spoof thing comes out. But someone could easily just dress up as a glittery vampire, make a TikTok video, and it's like, cool, we all accept that that's the funny thing. That was a goofy thing that happened, and we just let it go, and that's the end of it. It's had its time on the internet, and it's done.
Yeah, I think that's actually you bring up a great thought with that idea, is that, you know, the internet has, like we talked about in our airplane discussion when we did our whole memes thing, like memes and the internet have ruined comedy. Because I don't think, well, one, I don't think you can have good stand-up comedians anymore because every joke that anybody could ever think of has been done on the internet. Like, I know one of my friends, like, maybe it was like a year ago or something, and they were like, oh, I'm thinking about, like, doing, like, an open mic on stand-up. And I'm like, great, like, go for it. And I was like, do you have any, like, material? And they were like, I'm still working out. But one of the jokes they had was, like, I don't remember it exactly, and of course they were working on it so they could tell it better, but it would be something like, they have to go get a step ladder, and they would be like, you're not my real ladder, you're my step ladder, you know, like, you're not my real dad, you're my stepdad. And I was like, that's a funny joke, but I've literally seen that as a tweet before.
Yeah.
And so it's like, now, I think that's why whenever we see, like, little bits on meme sites of stand-up comedians, it'll be a 1 to 2 minute chunk of either them saying Trump is bad or something political, or it'll be them dealing with a heckler. Like, there's no actual jokes anymore. Like, even at the time of this recording, I think it was last Saturday, people were like, wow, Dave Chappelle was great as the host of Saturday Night Live. And I'm like, what'd he do? And they were like, he commented on 2020 the year. And I'm like, I want to see Dave Chappelle be funny. I want to see, you know, Tyrone Biggums again. I don't want to see him talk about how bad the year was. So, yeah, I think the internet and memes have ruined comedy and stuff like that. And, you know, it's all been done. Everything just gets seen. It disappears. It gets reposted a week later, and it just goes through everything. And it's terrible. I hate it.
Yeah, and there's really not much left on this movie. Like, there was not a whole lot of good.
That is true. Like, there was one joke. This was one I was like, this is so stupid, but I really liked it. Paul Walker gets the love interest pregnant. So Vin Diesel's sister. And I actually did like, in terms of like parodying just not Fast and Furious, but movies in general, where she goes up to him and she's like, when you get back, we'll have to talk about something. And then they continue to just talk about it then and there. And I'm like, that's pretty funny, because it's like, why do they always say, when you get back, we have to talk about it, you know? It's like, why are you picking the worst time? But so he gets the sister pregnant. In the first scene is a wash, where she holds up the pregnancy stick, the pregnancy test, and then she starts singing Rockabye Baby, and he's so oblivious. Like, that's garbage. I hated that. But the second time, when she's like, we still need to talk, and I'm like, they haven't spoken about this yet? Like, he's been back for a day or something. And then he's like, I know exactly what's going on. You're getting fat. You should care about your appearance. And it cuts to him grabbing the stomach of the pregnant girl, and when he grabs the stomach, there's a little baby crying noise. Like, he squeezed the baby, and I'm like, oh, that's so stupid, but that's like Rob humor right there.
Yeah.
I still need to talk to you.
Before you do, there's something I need to tell you. I know what's going on.
You do?
Of course. Everyone does. It's not like you've done a very good job of hiding it.
You have no idea what a relief that is.
You're fat.
Excuse me?
I'm sorry, but it's obvious that you've got quite the muffin top going on. Jeez! You're like a fat Jonah Hill!
Is that... Once again, I don't know, because I know, of course, Paul Walker, the actual Paul Walker, not Paul Walker in this movie, he died 5-6 years ago now. Did he have, like, a baby with somebody in the movie? Like, was that an actual arc from some...
Yeah, he does end up with Vin Diesel's sister.
Okay.
And they do have kids or whatever.
That was one of the things when, before I talked to you, I was like, is this the family that people are talking about? Like, they have a kid together?
Yeah, I don't know, but there's not much about it. Like, he just... Then I guess that's, like, his motivation for everything else. It's like, I need to get my family out of this lifestyle. And it's like... Okay, but you were a cop making good money. Like, no one told you to go undercover and do all this stuff. But I don't know.
yeah, exactly. Okay, yeah, but that little, you're getting fat, and he grabs the stomach and hear the baby crying noise. I was like, that. Once again, though, like we were saying, that's just, you could take that clip out, that like 15 seconds, make it a meme. You get a bunch of thumbs up or upvotes or whatever the fuck they're called, and no one's gonna think twice about the rest of this movie. I don't think we are after we, finish discussing it either. It's going to be like, it's on the list. I checked it off. We don't need to discuss it anymore.
Yeah.
So there's not a lot on the internet about this movie. Of course it exists. I think a lot of people chalk it up to what we've been saying. Like, they tried a lot. It's not that great. I think basically all the reviews are like, this is terrible. I didn't check Rotten Tomatoes because I don't like Rotten Tomatoes, but I would assume this has less than 10%. If not less than 5%. So what I did was I went through the IMDb reviews, because every once in a while you'll find IMDb reviews of people who liked the movie. And that's kind of the opinion I was trying to get. I was like, who likes this movie? Like we were saying. I don't have any ages or anything of the people on IMDb. But a few of them were like, oh yeah, it was fun. Like, it's easy to turn your brain off and watch. It's enjoyable. I'm like, I guess that's the case, if you just let it wash over you. Yeah. But there was one really good review that I think they gave it like a 7 or an 8 out of 10, because IMDb's on a scale of 10. And the review said multiple times, this is a fantastic satire. And I was like, this person does not know what satire means. Like, satire and spoof are very different things, and this person was confusing the two. And I found that hilarious. So I think this might be the answer to our question. This movie appeals to dumb people who don't know the difference between words. Like, there's no satirization in this movie. This is spoof and basic comedy through and through. Like, you think of the great satire movies, like Fight Club is a satire. Like, this is nothing like Fight Club. Like, glorification of men beating each other up. Like, that's the satire. One of the qualities of satire is you need to think it's real. Like, it does the idea so well that people believe it's real. I cannot imagine if you watch this movie and you're like, yeah, this is what the criminal world is like. They're ripping a whole Taco Bell out of the ground and dragging it for miles.
Oh my god. Yeah. No, that's spot on. I just can't turn my brain off. I guess I have not mastered that ability.
I definitely agree with you that this podcast has definitely ruined my ability to watch movies just for fun. like one of my last examples was I was interested in seeing Tim Burton's Dumbo, because Tim Burton has a very interesting career to me, and I got someone's Disney Plus information and Dumbo was on there. And I'm watching the movie, and in like the first 5 minutes, I'm like, this girl's head is so flat. Like, there's a little girl in the movie, and it looks like she got dropped on her head as a baby, because her whole scalp is just like a plateau. And I just thought about that for like 3 minutes, and then I'm like, that's not the point of this movie. Why can't I get over this fact?
Oh god.
I did not finish Dumbo, so I don't have any thoughts on it. I fell asleep pretty quickly for Dumbo. I fell asleep before Dumbo even showed up, so that tells you what I thought about that movie.
Oh man.
So yeah, I think in summation, unless you had any other scenes or jokes you hated, loved, that you want to talk about, what do we want to say? 35 out of 10 American masterpiece. That's our rating for this movie.
I can back that up.
Okay, greatest film of the last 20 years. Oh, man. No, I think, like I said at the start, this is a really good way to cap off our spoof movie thing. I think we've explained why that, things like Airplane and Don't Be a Menace, even though we had problems. Oh, sorry. Don't Be a Menace to South Central while drinking your juice in the hood. I almost didn't say the whole name. Even though those have problems, those are coming from at least a somewhat better place than this is. And $20 million? I really want someone to audit these dudes. Where did that money fucking go? Because I do not see it on the screen. So, if there's nothing else from you, LaShawn, and we can get into our questions. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, I think I'll start. I don't think this is going to be a surprise to anybody. This is not a cinemoddity. This is, I think the existence of these two people making the same spoof movie over and over, and they consistently get rated very poorly, but they keep doing it, or did keep doing it in like the late 2000s, early 2010s. That might be a cinemoddity. The fact that people go see them and they used to make money, that's a cinemoddity. This movie, though, no. This movie is an atrocity, like I said earlier.
I agree with that 100%. I've got nothing else to add, and I'm just like, I want my, hour and whatever something minutes back.
Yes. And as far as late night, I have to go no as well. I would not subject anybody to this movie. This movie is almost so bad that I don't even think I would want to use it as a torture device. If I was kidnapped and they were interrogating me for information and they were like, you can watch these Friedberg and Seltzer movies on repeat, or we'll do Chinese water torture, I think I'd take the Chinese water torture. I would never put this on for somebody late at night. And because it's not even so bad that we can laugh at it. It's a groaner through and through. Like I said, I was audibly booing the movie and their racial jokes.
Yeah, it's not even on the level of Sharknado. Sharknado, you're like, oh man, this is so bad, but I can still watch it, or Piranha, or just any of those things. Just all right. But this, I agree with you as well. I think if I wanted my date to leave the house, I would put this on and just be like, I'm going to watch this. This is my favorite. And they would just judge me and leave. And I'd be like, cool.
Now that's a good use for it if you really want to get somebody away from you. Because, speaking of dates, we didn't even talk about how Paul Walker licks the girl's eye in the car. Oh. And I was like, what the fuck is this? And I hated the editing, too, because they do the whole thing where it's like, should we do our first kiss now? And the only thing I could think of was the joke from the Simpsons movie where Homer has the pig as his pet, and they're just sitting on the couch in silence, and then Homer goes, I think we should kiss now to break the tension. And he says it to a pig. And it's like, that's some classic goofy Simpsons.
Don't get any ideas, huh? Maybe we should kiss just to break the tension.
What's going on here?
Nothing.
It's the same scene in this movie where he's like, I think it's awkward. We should get it out of the way. And then they lean in for the kiss. He licks her eye, where he licks her chin to eye, eyebrow. And the movie cuts away immediately to her looking freaked out. Because I would bet $20 million on this, the budget of this movie, that when he licked her eye, it smudged her makeup, and they didn't want that in the next scene. So they did a direct edit to her having pristine makeup after being licked. And it's so fucking stupid. If you're gonna double down on the joke that he licked her whole face, show her makeup messed up. That's what would happen.
Right. Oh, man. Oh, so gross.
Oh, yeah. But, put this movie on. If you want your date to leave, put this movie on. Lick their eyeball.
Get the awkwardness out of the way right away.
Do that thing where you put your whole mouth over their nose and you breathe out really fast. All that uncomfortable stuff. Just, this movie is up there with them. So, of course, the actual thing that I think is the saving grace for this movie is that there's actually some food and food-related jokes, which are good for the snacks for the restaurant. We mentioned one already, and it's so weird that I don't even think I would have ever thought of it. I would love to serve mayonnaise sickles. I wouldn't eat the mayonnaise sickles, but I would serve the mayonnaise sickles. I don't even know what the freezing point of mayonnaise is.
I don't want to know.
But mayonnaise sickles have to be on there. I think the other low-hanging one is big-ass tacos. Honestly, I don't even think that's a joke. Like, tacos that are so big, you need 2 hands to hold them and they're bigger than your head. I would just eat that taco.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I would love to go to a restaurant and they'd be like, you have to eat this whole taco in 30 minutes, as a food competition. I'd be all about that. I think the only other one I had was, because it makes no sense in the movie, that... Oh, God, yeah, and I don't know who he's parodying. The guy who sells them out at the end, and the dude who's like really whiny is like, I thought I was your BFF. He's like Vin Diesel's right-hand man, but then he like gets replaced by Paul Walker. I have no idea who he's parodying in the Fast and the Furious movies.
That character is the only one that's like spot on to a T, because that's how it's like his brother-in-law, I believe, is who he is. I think his name is Vince. But yeah, in the first movie, yeah, he just rebels and he just hates Brian because he wants to be Vin Diesel's best friend, and he's like, "What about me? What about me? Love me." And like, that's his character.
Okay, yeah, he was the only one I had no clue what it was referring to. I don't think he has like a single.
He's the only one that knew Brian was a cop. Or Paul Walker.
Yeah, yeah, and that's
like,
that's the scene that I'm getting from, because he like confronts him and he starts pouring what you think is oil into his mouth.
Oh, the hot fudge.
And then it's the chocolate syrup in the oil can container, and I was like, I like that. Like
calories this thing has.
Yes, that's what I want in the restaurant. We serve our chocolate syrup in those big old school oil containers with like the spout jammed in and everything. That character in this movie, he had no good lines, I thought. Like, they put so much emphasis on when he's like, now you can't come over and watch the season finale of The Bachelor. And I was like, wow, that dates this. Like, who talks about The Bachelor anymore? Even in 2015, who was talking about The Bachelor?
No.
So I have one other. It's more of an event than a snack. But did you have anything for this movie, or did I steal all your?
No, you got them all pretty good. Yeah.
I actually like that was the thing. I was watching this, and I'm like, oh my god, like some of this is so like such a slog. Like I want them to keep going. Like, okay, another joke fell flat. Let's do something. At least there was food. Like, that was my saving grace, that they were doing food things, and I was like, oh, okay, I can actually spend some time writing this down in my notes to make this movie go faster.
Exactly.
My last event was taking advantage of, one, since we've never really talked about a movie so entrenched in cars before, and we have an infinite void of a restaurant, of course, we should have street races somewhere in the restaurant. Like, set up a track and all that stuff, like get people who have no driving experience with manuals to be able to get into a car for a fee and race each other and stuff like that. And I guess with that idea, I wanted to ask you, what do we have to do? What would be ideal? Should it be like just a strip, like we're doing just straight line racing? Should we have like one of those tracks like they have on Top Gear for the Stig or something? What are your recommendations if we want to entice people to drive cars that they don't know how to drive in the restaurant? What should we do? Should there be a loop-de-loop?
We should definitely have a circuit going. Like, we should have like figure eights and everything, and the table should just be like smack dab in like the most dangerous places on this track for people to lose control.
Now that I really like. That it's like, where would you like to sit? Would you like a table, a booth near the dining room? Would you like to be in these sections that we have, or would you like to be in the middle of the figure eight?
And hope that you just make it.
Yes. Constant like engine revving, and you're trying to talk to the waiter. Everybody's like, what? The big ass taco. What?
Oh man.
Okay, so yeah, I think that's the best addition. We're gonna have some racing track. I don't know where we'll get cars from, because I don't think we want people to bring their own cars. Like, I would love to like provide cars. That'll be our next thing. We have to figure out how to get like weird cars and stuff. I would love to have a smart car. I think we do have a tank somewhere in the restaurant. If it's not in the restaurant, it's like our delivery vehicle or something like that. So we'll have to figure that out. That's a work in progress, and we can get different cars and stuff like that for sure. I would love to have like a Batmobile. People would love to race in the Batmobile.
Oh yeah.
And then the insurance would be great. We just take out all these wonderful insurance policies on these cars. Oh, man. So, all right. We did it. Before we sign off for this episode, of course, LaShawn, I think this is finally an episode where every time you're on and I talk about how you know things about cars, you've actually gotten to show it off. So if you liked LaShawn talking about cars and answering Rob's ignorant questions about vehicles, where can they find more of you doing that same thing?
Easy enough. They can just head on over to YouTube and look up LJ's Garage, and I will be there most likely talking about cars, unless someone hijacked my account and started uploading random videos, but cars all day.
Okay, good. Right on. So yeah, definitely check that out. It's some good stuff. And like I said, we finally had you actually, making good that you can talk about cars. As far as mine goes, of course, definitely always feel free to harass us through email, cinemoddities@gmail.com. We have a Cinemoddities subreddit, r/cinemoddities, which people seem to lurk on. They don't really add anything. So it's kind of become like record keeping for Cinemoddities. If you want to see, Rob's reviews of movies and his rankings for directors we've done, that's the place to go. But feel free to come on there and harass us as well. We also have a Cinemoddities Patreon. I don't know if LaShawn knew about this. So patreon.com/cinemoddities for $5 a month. At the lowest tier, you get 2 episodes of bonus content on the 1st and 15th of every month. The first of the month, I'm telling our audience, and I'm telling you, LaShawn, because I'm excited about it. The first of the month is always going to be like another, Cinemoddities movie discussion, that type of thing. But on the 15th of every month, Ben and I are working through, in order, every single episode of Adventure Time.
What?
Yes. And so if you want to hear Rob and Ben and LaShawn, we'll probably have to get you on one of those episodes eventually. Because this has only been around for 2 months, so we do 2 episodes a month. So right now, if you join the Patreon, you can get, episodes 1 through 4. And LaShawn knows there's a lot more than 4 episodes. But we are going through it. We're talking about it in detail, all the themes, all the actual things. It's great. It's good fun. So check us out there. And, of course, if supporting the podcast will make better content for you, that type of stuff. So any final thoughts, LaShawn, on anything? Or are we ready to talk about how to end this episode?
No, that's it. I appreciate you having me on. I can talk with you about movies all day, every day.
Nice, yes. Yeah, I'll have to see when we get into next year. We have a lot of movies planned out, and I'll have to see if you're interested in any of them, because there's a whole random smattering, and I don't remember because there's so many. But yeah, we'll have you back, of course, for sure. So I think since this movie is kind of, low on the music, once again, where did the money go? It's the most generic score in existence. I'm sure they just got B-roll from some, website where it was, Creative Commons. They could use it for free. Yeah. But I guess we just take the ending credits music and play it in reverse? There's not much else.
Oh, man.
I would imagine, do the Fast and Furious movies have, tie-ins? Because I know when Vin Diesel's parody is talking about it, he's like, we get a rapper on, and that lets him do a tie-in track for these movies. Does Ludacris have, a Fast and Furious song?
Yeah, I mean, he's got some that they've used in the movies, yeah.
Oh, okay. See, we don't have anything like that here. I wish they would have spent some money on, a rapper cameo song, because that probably would have been funny. If not funny, we could have used it. So, yeah, I guess we'll go with that. All right. Until next time, LaShawn, everybody check out his YouTube channel. Everybody put the NOS in your cars. Go fast. All right. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks, Rob.